I need some traction. You need some traction.
Hello, Vancouver. So my name's Renee Warren, and I have the absolute honor to be sitting here with these fine folks. So quick introductions. We have Kim Kaplan, Errol Samuelson, and Michael Gokturk. If you guys just want to have a little quick intro about what you guys do.
I'm Michael with Payfirma. We're a payments company. So anytime you guys buy anything with the credit card or debit card, online, Apple Pay, anywhere in Canada or the United States, we move the money around in the background. So that's what we do.
I'm Kim. I'm with Plenty of Fish, and for those of you that aren't single, we are an online dating site. We help people create relationships and.
And I'm Errol Samuelson. I'm with Zillow Group. We run the network of the largest real estate sites in the United States. We have about 160 million users a month who come to our sites, and we got about 60% market share in the new homes, resale homes, and rental homes category in the United States.
Very well. So I will dive in. I know that Lloyd had some homework while we were here the last couple days and getting some community-generated questions. So I know that these questions come from you guys. So first question, startups don't have the same deep pockets, brand awareness, or an army of evangelists as do big corporations. They certainly don't have the bandwidth or energy to test every distribution channel out there. Facing these odds, how can a startup acquire customers efficiently?
I can take that one. With Payfirma, in our first year, our business is all B2B customers. So reaching the business community is very difficult as a startup. So what we really did was we focused on key what we call one-to-many relationships. And those are typically things like banks or credit unions or chambers of commerce, where big customers and big businesses kind of aggregate and conglomerate. So we were fortunate enough in our first couple of years to sign a partnership with CIBC. And that allowed us to really grow and expand quickly. And it gave us the credibility we needed to continue expanding into the fintech sector to get more distribution. But our focus was always on these one-to-many relationships. And in terms of testing distribution channels or looking for channels that you can monetize, what we would do is kind of focus on one key channel and then try to optimize that channel before we spread ourselves too thin, trying to optimize social, SEO, SEM, print, all those different channels that you want to try and monetize. But if you're trying to do all these things at one time, you're not going to be good at a single one. So focusing on a single channel, or maybe two at best, and trying to optimize those before moving on to other channels was something that we found very successful.
How do you know what channel to start with?
You know, it's a gut feeling, but really it's about where do your customers aggregate. So where are they gathering? And you go and find those channels that they're mostly on. If it's, I don't mean to speak for Kim, but if it's dating, you're probably going to be on social channels. But for us, going after the business community, it was all about going to the banking sector, chambers of commerce, wherever your customers are aggregating, that's where you need to be optimizing first.
So our focus was a little different. We're in the B2C space, and we did not advertise in any traditional manner for the first 7 years of the company's existence. And we had a real focus on both PR and on social. But in PR, our focus was on something that we would call data PR. And a number of companies do this now. Spotify is really good at it. Glassdoor is good at it. But early on, when we only had a handful of employees, we hired a chief economist to come up with insights around the housing market. And then get those insights out, whether it was where the market was trending. And when we launched, it was right around the time we were almost at the peak of the housing bubble in the United States. There was a lot of interest in what was happening in the markets. And so we had a lot of data about where we thought the market was going. We tried to establish ourselves as being unbiased, so we weren't always pumping up the market saying things were great. And we've continued to do that. I mean, even today, we have a big team, probably 50 plus people, data scientists and economists. But we will engage people, take questions on Facebook Live on where the market's heading. With social, it was a little different in that what we tried to do was reach out to other groups who also had a social strategy and see if we could partner with them. And I think probably the most interesting was we'd worked for a couple of years with the White House, with their social team, trying to see if there was something we could do with them. And one day, it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, they phoned us and said, listen, Obama wants to say something about housing policy. He's in LA to do one of the late night talk shows. Can you do something 2 days from now? So we set up a studio in the LA Hilton where he was staying, and we did a live town hall where individual consumers could tweet questions to Obama or ask him questions over Facebook, and he'd answer them. And it was hugely impactful for our brand. We got a ton of media coverage. But again, that was simply by reaching out to other groups in the social community and finding, are there ways that we can support you or collaborate with you?
We had a very similar story in that when Plenty of Fish was starting out, we didn't spend on marketing. We really focused on which numbers and which metrics were going to drive engagement. And so for us, it was messaging. And by focusing on messaging and trying to increase messaging, that encompassed signups, that encompassed people engaging and having an interaction, which is ultimately what will lead to our success and people ending up in a relationship or going out on dates. So it was really honing in on what is that core metric that isn't necessarily revenue, but that can encompass more than just a sign-up, because that should drive signups.
So with online dating, there were a lot of companies at the same time of Plenty of Fish. So how did you cut through the clutter at that time?
It was really focusing on those key metrics. And I remember talking to Marcus about it, and it was every day or every week saying, I'm going to move this one number, and then focusing everything you could on just moving that number, and then shifting to a different metric or a different one, but really honing in on figuring out, for us, there's one important metric. And as long as we keep driving that forward and increasing that number, we'll increase engagement and we'll increase signups. And that was it. It's not rocket science, but it's figuring out what that metric is and how you can monitor that and measure that to drive your performance.
So what was that metric for you guys?
It's messaging. There's various ways in which we break messaging out, but it is really messaging. If I send a message to you, you then come back online, and then you have a chance to respond to me. Then we have a chance of going out on a date. And then I might tell my friend that, hey, I went on a date with you. So that kind of viral loop starts to spawn as a result of just sending one message.
Fantastic. So the next question is about monetization. Should you resist the urge to monetize, even under pressure by investors or stakeholders?
I can take a swing at that. I think a few things are important. First of all, if you're a startup, getting, I think, the corporate structure is important. So one of the things that we did early on is we created a dual class of stock. Actually, Alphabet's done this, Facebook has done this, where the founders have retained a majority share of the voting rights, which means that even though we're a public company, they have the ability to look long term, and so you can be thoughtful about monetization. And then the second principle that we've had is monetization is important, but it's not important to monetize everything. And so we intentionally don't monetize some pieces of the business. So our core business is helping consumers connect with real estate professionals, whether you're an agent or a mortgage broker. And one of the things we've done is we've created a CRM platform from scratch that we give away for free to all of our professional clients. Our competitors actually sell their CRM platforms. We don't. We similarly have created a call center so that when a consumer inquires about a property online, if the agent isn't available, we will phone that consumer back within 1 minute to make sure the consumer gets an answer. And we don't charge for that call center. And the reason we provide the free software and the free call center to our customers is that we know it increases their close rate on our media. And we have now, it was our thesis, which we've now been able to actually prove, is if we can increase their close rate, they're going to buy more media from us. And so by not monetizing everything, you can actually generate long-term better revenue growth.
I think monetization is also seen as being a bad thing. But there's lots of ways in which you can approach monetization where it is a positive for your ecosystem. We were talking earlier, and like Tinder's a great example of that. They introduced Super Like, which tells someone that you're really interested in them. That is a monetization feature, but it also drove engagement, and it drove people to express an added interest in somebody else. So I'd challenge you to say, okay, thinking about monetization beyond it just being bad and hurting things, how can you flip that on its head and say, what can we think about from a monetization perspective that can actually drive usage and drive engagement?
Yeah, Dropbox does that well too. Mm-hmm. What about Payfirma?
You know, we are fortunate that our business is all monetized from day one. because we're taking a piece of every transaction, we were making money on our first day. So we've never been under pressure to, per se, monetize. But what we look at is what our one metric that matters at Payfirma is how much do we process for our customers. So if we do $1 billion, how much does Payfirma make of that? So our real focus and our thesis is how do we offer our customers more tools for payments so that they can drive more value and more payment channels from their customers. So if our customers are processing more transactions, then we're making more money. So really what we do is try to deepen our product enough that our customers are able to then either sell more or reach more customers that they wouldn't have reached previously.
Is there a downside to maximizing pricing?
Yes, attrition. And I think everyone would agree that you want to profit maximize, but you also don't want to do it to the point where it's going to lead to mass attrition from your customer base. So it's always about that data science game that you have to get right from the get-go and just keep testing that channel.
Do you think people truly believe that a higher price means more value?
Well, I don't want to take the stage here, but Kim.
I think you would find that, not to hone in on dating, but you've got tons of dating sites out there. There's free and there's paid, and there's certain segments of the population that will use one instead of the other for just that reason. But you start segmenting and nichifying your audience if you say, I'm only going to focus on this one area and be very high priced or be very low priced. So you have to think about what is your value proposition, and is it a race to the bottom with being very low priced, or are you only going to tackle this one small area of the market? And that small area of the market can still be very profitable, but you have to understand what it is you're going after.
So does free mean no value, and how do you get around exemplifying value to something that is free?
We've seen companies that have started off as free, and they've tried to go to the freemium model. So in our business, in the fintech industry, what we've seen is a lot of businesses try to capture great market share by offering those services for free. But what you find in your cohort analysis typically is that if you bring a customer in that wants something for free, and then you try to monetize that customer afterwards, you will most likely not be able to do so. And we've seen a lot of great companies come and go just because they start off as freemium, get a whole bunch of users, introduce a $5 a month fee, and everyone disappears.
We saw something interesting there. We bought a company last year which does electronic contracts. Like if you're going to purchase a home, you can do it electronically, and then you can e-sign it, and you get rid of the fax machine, amazingly, which is a big deal in real estate. But one of the things we found is that we were better off to charge the brokerages for the product. We tried a freemium model, and what we found was that they needed to have skin in the game in order to go train their agents and go get them to adopt the software, because agents don't like changing their processes. And so we were better off. We actually got higher monthly users. We got a higher engagement in terms of number of contracts being processed by charging, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Well, that's good for the bottom line.
It worked for us, yeah.
So word of mouth is known as one of the most effective channels to acquire customers. How do you quantify and measure that?
For us, it's been, we do spend on marketing, but it is not a huge amount. But if we hold our marketing spend steady and we do a product change or we do something that we think will increase word of mouth, you can then see, you've set kind of your delta and your benchmark in terms of where user acquisition is and where signups are at. And then if you see that jump up, you can attribute that jump to a change that you made in the product.
It's tough. We do a ton of A/B testing. One of the things we've got going on right now is we're trying to get consumers to claim their home online and update the home facts. And we'll probably run 15 or 20 tests a week to see what works. We've tested sort of campaigns to see how viral they are. Does the email get forwarded? But word of mouth, it's tough to track.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too. I run the PR agency, and people are like, how do you measure that? And we saw in some presentations today, you can measure it. It's still very hard.
Yeah.
But we know it works. It's just people want to see like how does word of mouth work, or how does looking at that TechCrunch article actually turn into a customer. Sometimes it does, oftentimes it doesn't. So it's interesting. Talking about metrics, what metrics should companies use to charge their customers? What kind of data can support a pricing decision?
Well, the first rule of economics is you price what the market will bear. That's not always applied in fact and doesn't always work, but I think a great way to do it would be benchmark against your competitors and see what's acceptable out there, and then try to determine what your product brings value. So what am I offering my customer and my end customer, and what is that customer willing to pay for that value? But our best way of driving pricing at our company is really studying the benchmarks, studying the data. At what point do your customers start to attrit? And you can probably profit maximize, and you've got to run that regression test almost, if not daily, almost monthly.
We were talking backstage about how Amazon charged for
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, and the decision for the pricing was just some random meeting.
It was over lunch. So I think a lot of people, the initial price anyways, was just decided over lunch. And the thought there is sometimes you just have to launch it, you put it out there, you get a number, and you see how many people convert for it, and then you test from there. And you can base that on the competition, you can base that on gut. It doesn't matter. That price will change 20, 30, 40, 50 times. It might change by demo, by region.
I'm curious, how many people have Prime in the audience? Okay, yeah. There was a really interesting study that came out last week that once people sign up for Prime, they will double their purchases on Amazon. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
Free shipping, of course, right?
Right.
I like that. So back to, time for the last question, back to customer acquisition. We've seen a paradigm shift in power from the corporations to the consumers. And the corporations that have embraced this change and turned customer-centric continue to gain a competitive gain. However, as they acquire more customers, it becomes increasingly harder to engage with everyone. How does customer engagement work at scale?
I really think that in the future it's going to be AI, and that's going to help us engage at scale and have meaningful one-on-one conversations with our customers based on keywords that they say, and that's probably the only real scalable mass consumer way in which we can engage with a customer one-on-one. Otherwise, you can scale a customer service center, but it only takes you so far, and it costs quite a bit too.
We do a lot with social. So we did about 1 million social interactions with consumers last year, and about a quarter of those were customer service interactions. It's more efficient, and also there's sort of the bleed over effect that other people can see how you're helping your customers. I'm super interested in chatbots and what Facebook's looking at doing. I don't know if it'll work. If we can make it realistic and it doesn't feel like you're talking to a machine, I think there's tremendous potential there. It's super interesting.
I don't know. I think chatbots are like, remember when you call American Airlines and you're like, I want to change my flights, like, tell me your flight number. 319. I heard 219. And it drives you nuts. You're like, human.
That's called Siri now.
And and Siri doesn't talk back to me at all. I think she's just mad at me. But like, AI is so far out, in my humble opinion. We all heard about what happened when the Microsoft, what was it called, Tay? The Twitter chatbot turned racist and like genocidal within a day of being on Twitter. So you can only imagine what a customer engagement AI chatbot's going to end up doing to your brand. So I would stay away from AI, in my humble opinion, again. But at scale, there's amazing tools out there to engage with your customers at scale. A lot of enterprise companies, large organizations, and including small ones like Payfirma, we use things like Hootsuite to engage with our customers. And you're right, Errol, it is all about social, because when a customer is these days angry or wants an issue resolved quickly, they will go to social and they will complain there, and they know that everyone else is watching. Right. So it's on you to engage with that customer right away, solve their problem, or at least show them that you care. So there's a lot of great tools, including, did I say Hootsuite? I'm not paid by Hootsuite, but that's the tool we use and it works great.
Definitely. Well, that's time. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful replies. That's it.
Thank you.
I need some traction. You need some traction.